What?
Misty.
Do you want some house music?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
It's feeling very much like when you show up early for church.
Worship and praise. That should give you a theme if you're looking at
When you show up.
Well,
You're right,
they
you're
were
right.
flagged when we went into church.
What time did you get back from the warrant?
12:30.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. Someone was like, they're open until 2, and I was like, oh no, I wonder if Sharice and Nason are going to stay up until 2 a.m.
No.
I'm all set and we're screaming.
And like, we were like so broken this morning, I was like, no, can't coffee.
Oh my gosh, did you go to the laptop practice? How?
She said, how?
You look very well rested.
I saw Senator NOLA.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Huh?
I didn't get that either.
Was it good? Was they having a good conversation? Talk about nothing? Yes, no, not really. Okay, alright. It was okay.
Someone from AV checking with you, by chance?
No, but I think
We were good.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
Just a little bit louder.
Force notes.
Here. Yeah. We're gonna wait probably about 4 more minutes and then we'll get started.
Annalisa is going into a dance party.
Yeah, Sharice. Early morning on purpose.
And I was like, Annalisa was stretching.
Recording in progress.
ready to get started. Yeah? Are you good? Okay, cool. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello. How's everybody doing? Tired. Friday morning conference times. 9:30. Aaron's like, I'm ready.
The first, I'm just here. I just arrived. I'm here for the next thing, but I just arrived.
Perfect. Should we like rearrange this room a little bit?
Well, not, I feel like that's gonna mess up the owl.
No, but I mean just like move some of these chairs so that
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like they're not sitting in rows like this.
Perhaps.
Okay, here's the assignment. Collectively, improvised theater right now, we're doing it. We're gonna make this room into a room that is more like a circular formation and less like a classroom. Since it's just us this morning, I'm like, why do we not just be human with each other?
Yeah, I love it.
What?
Yeah?
Humanity?
Humanity on Friday morning. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Love it.
Yeah, it did mess up the owl.
No, it follows you.
I don't like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is fair. I already feel
That's
like-
what I meant.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
You better say something.
Okay, amazing. Okay, shall we, Tara, do you want to share that little slide thing and we'll just get going?
Sure, it says if I do this, it will stop another computer's sound share. So let's see.
Oh, I think that might have been a big sound share, so I think we're good.
We're good.
Here we go.
Okay.
This is very high tech. Tara is zooming in from South Dakota. and
All right.
We are all across the continent today. Amazing. Okay, so here we are in this Not a Drill Climate Just Futures. I hope you're in the right place. We welcome you. We're gonna, thank you, Big, for the assist. I think we're just gonna start by doing some intros.
Yeah.
Lauren, you wanna start?
Sure.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren E. Turner. I use she, her pronouns for visual descriptor for those who are joining us for streaming purposes. I am a medium brown young black woman. I'm wearing a black jumpsuit with kind of like blue and salmon colored flowers. I don't know. And I'm really, really grateful to be here with all of you. I'm grateful to be here with you, Anna. And I'm grateful to be here with you, Tara, too. To do this particular workshop and have this discussion. I am the founding, producing artistic director of a company called No Dream Deferred, which is located in New Orleans, which is ancestral known as Bubancha. It's the home of the Homo Choctaw and Chitimacha people. And it is also the place where my ancestors were brought from Senegal and they were forced to work that land. So it's a place where it's very old land, very, very old, has a lot of storied history. And the work that we do there through storytelling is very much connected to the climate realities of the region. And our audience is predominantly Black, and a part of our work is to really make sure that we are connecting who we are as a people to our climate realities, and also understanding that climate injustices are very much born of the same place as racial injustices are, and that they're all connected to white body supremacy culture, and to really mobilize Black and brown folks towards leading in the push for solutions and ideas when thinking about how we're approaching climate justice. That there's a space for us to lead in this work. So, all right, what an honor to sit next to you.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Annalisa. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm here today as one of the co-founders of Groundwater Arts alongside Tara, who's on our Zoom. I live and work in Baltimore, Maryland, but I grew up here in Pittsburgh, so I'm excited to be home. And I'll say a tiny bit about Groundwater Arts, which is that we're a collective of artists founded by entirely women, half an indigenous collective, predominantly POC, and we're working at the intersection of arts and storytelling and climate justice, and really trying to connect folks that are interested in the climate crisis with like the movement for social justice, because
My name is Lauren.
I know, I was like racism, as late on that word. No, I what you said about racism.
Hey, racism.
As Lauren already said, the climate crisis, we already understand that the climate crisis is so linked to the movement for racial justice. And it's like, I find personally inside of the work that I've been doing in the theater community that there's often a sort of divide between like the folks that are doing eco-theater or like climate change work and the folks that are like trying to change like the EDI, anti-racism, whatever you call that, and like decolonizing, that kind of stuff. It's somehow like we don't connect that these are the actual same movement. And I'll say that my people are from Goa, which is a part of what is now called India, and we're a coastal community. So as Lauren talks about the way that New Orleans is experiencing the first and worst effects of climate change, like it resonates with the way that Goa is experiencing. It's monsoon season right now in Goa, and I keep seeing news alerts about how things like the mountains are just like washing down into the sea. So that's all I'll say about me. I'm sure we'll share more during the session. Tara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, stop sharing your slides. Wait, Tara. Stop sharing.
Hello, everyone. My
She
name is
can't hear
Tara.
me.
She, her pronouns. I just somehow turned off my lights. Anyway, hello, Anna.
There we go. Thank you.
Anyway, hello. I am from the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, specifically the Muskogee Creek Reservation. I currently live in Narragansett land, that is in Providence, or colonially known as Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm calling in from Lakota country out here in what is colonially known as Vermilion, South Dakota. So, all over the place. So Annalisa, I'm one of the co-founders of Groundwater Arts. I am also the artistic director of Radio Soaring, a freelance director and playwright. And I am in charge of technology today, which, we'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What else do I need to know?
You're perfect. Okay, I think we're doing a little Zoom land acknowledgement, Tara? Can you do that for us?
Yes. My screen just decided to stop sharing.
Oh, good.
All right. Okay, so, another one here. So Zoom, the platform that we're using today and many days still, is headquartered in what is now called San Jose, California, on the traditional lands of the Ohlone Indian peoples. So we acknowledge the lands that Zoom resides on because the work we create together on a digital platform or on this hybrid platform for today does not exist in an ether or an imaginary void, but is made possible because of the physical land and the indigenous people who steward it. Anyway, and so to say that even though TCG is both in person and also hybrid, is not to forget that these digital capabilities are very much rooted in physical land and stewardship of indigenous peoples. Anyway, so bringing that into the room today. Yeah, so we did Who Are We? And why we were talking to them, right? We did that?
Yes.
Yes, we did it.
Great. So, how do we want to work together today?
So we just want to recognize that this is a hybrid session, so there's people joining us, online. We do want to do our best to meet access needs. If there are access needs that you have in the room or access needs that need to be expressed via chat, we welcome it and we will work to meet all access needs. And then we just want to have a generosity of spirit, idea, right? And really taking into consideration respect for one another and understanding that there are going to be multiple ideas and solutions when talking about climate change, climate justice. There is no one way, right? No one approach. And also, something that I love to bring into the room. Actually, I'm gonna bring 3 things into the room. Number 1,
Here we go.
ask clarifying questions if something's not clear. This sounds very simple, but it really speaks to it's the difference between assuming you understand where someone's coming from and getting clarity on where they're coming from. So I have to stop myself a lot, and when I hear something that strikes me or triggers me, I have to say, can I ask a clarifying question? I'm hearing this, right? So I just want to offer that. I want to offer that this may or may not be the container that you need for this conversation. I know that sounds harsh, but it's not. It's probably one of the most loving things that I can offer to the space. If you recognize that this may not be the container for the conversation that you need to have, that frees you up to figure out ways that you can participate in this space today, knowing that you're still going to be seeking out a space that's for the conversation that you need to have. And then lastly is wait. Why am I talking, right? Why aren't I talking? So just using that as a check-in as we're going through the day as well.
You're perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we just wanted to set some intentions because I think we're together for a couple hours. So I would love to set some intentions for joy and fun, which I hope we've already been modeling. Collective learning, and then futuring. So when we get to part 2 of this lab, we're gonna do some futuring exercises where we're gonna basically go to the future and as though we're already there, and we're gonna figure out how do we make theater in the future that is already climate just, where the crisis has already been moved past. Are there any other, I want to make a little bit of space, are there any other intentions that y'all are bringing to the room that you would like to name now? Or Tara, or anyone on Zoom?
On Zoom, if you wanted to drop that into the chat, I can voice that, or if you want to unmute, you can as well.
I know the intention of just care.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Care was named, if you couldn't, I don't know if you can hear that on Zoom.
No, we cannot, so that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that, I can do that.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
One thing, when having hard conversations, something I always try and, for myself, bring into whatever I'm doing is patience.
Yeah.
Patience with myself to go oh wait, okay, what's causing a reaction or whatever it is, right? And then going, okay, I can move past that. Or even when you think about futuring, right? Well, we have to go quickly to solve climate crisis, but also knowing that other people who we have that we come into contact with, we're going to need patience with them as we go back into the rest of the world, right? So that's something I'm trying to bring to myself daily.
Patience was named as an intention. Cool, thank you. That's great. Oh, Amanda the captioner is having trouble hearing from you. Hey, Big, is there anything we can do with these? I assume these are microphones, right?
No, they're not. The microphone is at your laptop, so let me think about it
Okay.
for 1 minute.
Big is on it. Big, we're gonna solve this. Thank you for naming that. Okay. Moving through. No problem, Amanda, we got it. Okay, wait, we want to do the pair share thing.
Oh, yeah.
This is
okay,
you. This
so
is your
now,
thing.
so
This is
now,
your thing.
y'all, okay. So now we have to know more about you. But this is the way we're gonna do it.
Lauren said this to me the other day, and I was like, we
so,
have to do this, Lauren, we have to.
You
It's
think
so
you're
good.
gonna turn to the person closest to you. Hopefully, can we all pair up? No?
You can come, or you can come with us,
Oh,
yeah.
there could be one group of 3. Or is it even? I can't. It's fine? Okay. And you can share your name. Please share pronouns. And then share the skill you have for when shit hits the fan and the world ends. That will help us all to survive.
And that could be like, I know how to sew, I know how to garden, what are the things that you bring to our survival group when like the floods
When
come?
shit hits the fan. This is all language that I got out of my Black Preppers online
Welcome to
Facebook
the
group.
chat. Your name, your pronouns,
Thank you, Tara.
where you are from, and what is your world
Apocalyptic
hits the fan skills.
skills. Apocalyptic skills.
So get us through. Feel free to drop that into the chat.
I like how we're thinking about it.
We're doing this with Tara.
Yeah.
Talk about this all the time.
What's yours?
And I would enjoy it. And also like just be like because I know what you so like that's in one day. So that's 3 months. Right.
How are we doing? Has everyone been able to share? Everyone's been able to share? The reason I love doing this as a way to get to know each other is because we rarely have time to check in with one another. I was having this conversation with Tara and Annalisa, where I was just saying, you know, one of the problems is that our culture, you know, everything's about productivity, and you don't even get to know your neighbors anymore. And the main thing that we need to survive most crises, right? Not just apocalyptic ones, but just in general, is the support and to know really who around you has what skill set, right? And that a lot of the solutions are right here within us, but we don't even know each other well enough to know what those skills are and how they benefit our communities. I told Annalisa, she was like, well, what's your skill? I was like, I would teach the children. I will teach the children. And I found out that you are gardening.
Yeah.
I was like, we need to find the person who can clean the water so we can drink it, right? Like, who are these people in the community? Okay, great. This is wonderful. I need to get your information because I will be making my way wherever you are. But this is what we need to know. So I don't know if anybody wants to share anything that came out of their conversation at all with their neighbor or, oh, what?
This is our new thing.
This is the microphone.
This is how this.
If anybody wants to just share
We're gonna
anything,
hear us
yeah,
is with using this phone as a microphone.
any new thoughts or anything.
Aaron is gonna cycle and transport our vegetables out to the rest of the community. So that way they don't go bad.
Oh, I love that.
Amazing.
You go back. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Collective care.
We talked about communication, and we specifically talked about nonverbal communication, being able to read each other's body language and facial expression, and to modify our delivery or how we present based on the information that we're receiving just from visual cues.
Thank you, Megan.
All right, I'm actually sharing for Jacob. We can fell trees to build things or keep fire going while we cook all the garden things.
Oh. Anyone else?
Well, for Megan, she's ready to hunt for us.
Hey! Because I can't. I'm running from there.
I was just gonna say that Brett here can clean our water through a forced filtration system. So there's, we've got it all in house.
We would actually survive in this group.
Jasmine is gonna make candles for us, so we can see at night.
Oh, we do that.
Duh.
Well, B said that she's really good at following instructions, which I think is actually really vital. We all have to learn new skills, so.
Organizing.
Yeah, Tara, can you help us voice some of the ones from Zoom?
Oh, yeah. Danielle over here is a food grower, sewing expert, and outdoor survival trained. So, Danielle's on the team. Deidre is really good at organizing folks and keeping an inventory so we won't run out of food.
That's important.
So amazing.
So maybe we'll come out.
All right.
Pretty much carrot.
Oh, this, anybody else? All right. Anyone else? Check in? Okay. Well, I will say, I do believe that we will survive. I think that's the point, right? So much of the climate crisis narrative is doom and gloom. But the point is that most likely we will survive. So the question now is, how are we going to set ourselves up? What does the future hold for us? So that's a lot of where our conversation is going to.
Should we show that little video?
We're going to show a video, and then we're going to have a
And then we're gonna have a discussion. Yeah, then we're gonna have a
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
Tara, can you help us show this video?
Heck yeah.
Oh wait, is it possible to get this to be the sound in here? Give us 1 second, Tara.
What was that?
Can we get this thing to have the sound so the whole room can hear the video? Because right now the sound is coming out of your phone.
I see, sure. Yes.
Thank you, Big.
Yes!
You're amazing. It's good. No, this is good. This is Jacob named Patience as an intention, and here we are.
That's right.
Yes.
Can we try?
Can we try it? Yeah, Tara?
Let me know if you can hear this.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Breaking news out of Portland. Fire season is getting started 2 months earlier than expected. I'm on location in Kansas City talking with farmers who are dealing with unprecedented droughts and record-breaking heat. Due to last year's mass bleaching event, corals are now extinct in the wild, and the Monterey Bay Aquarium is home to the remaining survivors.
Ah, man, what's with all the old news clips?
Must be Extinction Week.
Stop it! Those things are scary.
Yeah, little bro. We have to remember how bad it almost was. That's what Extinction Week is all about. It was really almost a mass extinction event. We're lucky we made it. Not every species did.
But 2021 was like so long ago. 30 whole years.
Ah, and that decade was the most important one in history.
Okay, but it seems so unrealistic. Did they really treat each other that badly? And spew carbon in the air? And only care about how much they have?
Yeah, bro. They really dumped all that plastic trash in the ocean. No, bleak, little bro. But then in the 20s, it all changed.
How?
How what?
How they do.
See, this is exactly what Extinction Week is for. So we can learn about everything that happened. Let's see what's on for today. You've already seen Reparations 2023, yeah?
3 R's. Repair, restore, redistribute.
Yeah, that's the one. What about land back?
Decolonization is not a metaphor. Give the actual land.
Okay, what about just transition? A classic.
Boring. Seen it a million times. Extracting it to regenerative. Blah, blah, blah. I don't even understand how anyone really had an extractive economy anyway. Didn't they know how bad that was for everyone? Oh, what's the Great Restoring? Is that new this year?
Well, let's watch the trailer and find out.
In a world where the narrative about the climate crisis is all doom and gloom, mass extinction lurks just around the corner, and an uninhabitable planet is all but unavoidable. In a world still characterized by colonial capitalism and extractive white supremacy, a movement emerged. A small but mighty group of artists and cultural workers banded together and restoring the future. What if it didn't have to be this way, they asked. And that powerful question led to a series of events that changed the course of history as we know it.
Oh, wow. Now see, this sounds interesting. I've already watched all the ones about decolonization. Seems pretty basic. But the Great Restoring? Now that I could get into.
Oh, yeah, bro. Go get the popcorn. Little bro.
Okay, that's our video.
So that's our work too today.
Right.
The Great Restoring.
That's right. I'm like, that was, I don't know, I cracked myself up. Understandably. Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna get to part 2 where we're gonna do some restoring work, but I think in order to get to that, what I think we would love to do is have a conversation amongst ourselves about like where we are now, so that we have a foundation for like where we want to go. So since we're a smaller group, what we would love to do is just like actually have a conversation together about what we all already know about the connection between the climate crisis and racial justice. Because I bet that there are folks in this room, since y'all showed up at 9:30 on a Friday, I'm assuming that you have like a care for this kind of work. So I would love to maybe like collectively talk about what we know about the climate crisis. Lauren, did you?
And also, yeah, and I think too, the second part of the conversation is what have been some of the barriers that you've recognized in the work towards climate justice, whether that is oriented around the way you work in the theater, right, or just in general? What are some of the barriers that you've identified?
And is this still our? That's your phone.
That phone is doing
that still the
nothing.
microphone?
You want the microphone, right?
Yeah, is that still the microphone for the room?
Yes.
Okay, great, so we can pass it around then.
And if you don't know much about climate crisis, climate justice work, or how it's connected, that's okay too. And I think we can talk more about that too. There's okay, great. Anybody want to start us off? Yes.
I'll start with the barrier. And I think that is a common or general understanding or knowledge of the issues and possible resolutions. Because I think a lot of people don't care enough because they're unsure of what they should be caring about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a teacher now, but as a former managing director, doing the conversion of the mindset was both it was a change management as well as a financial management issue, like the cost of converting retrofitting the entire building to LED.
Yeah.
When literally the fixtures have to be changed. It's not just like changing a bulb.
Yeah.
It gets, in getting that prioritization into and embedded into the funding systems is hard but it's uncomfortable as well. And dealing with, the system on the board, that panel later, the structure doesn't support it.
I think that also, internationally speaking, is the economy of countries. For example, I'm coming from Colombia's point of view. To end the fracking means that the dollar would be 7 times our currency, just to buy $1. So internationally, our currency goes immediately, implodes. So that's a huge barrier, in third world countries.
I think a barrier could be sometimes the struggle of the narrative and maybe doing a shift of how the local ends up impacting the bigger picture. Sometimes that narrative is make or break for a lot of people, and really fully understanding how one person with a collective, with that mindset, could change a bigger picture.
Hello, everybody. So I'm new to the theater in and amongst the greatest of the Great Lakes, and what I see coming for us, right, is that looking at more like these supranational events that are coming. Climate change will lead to migrations of people throughout the world, and where I live right now, I'm a brand new resident there, we have 20% of the world's fresh water. That will become a major thing.
Yeah.
And I think the work that must be done in my community that is going to be a blocker is helping the people who are here now understand the responsibility that we have to all of the people all over the place, all over the world, will be displaced by change and displacement, that we have to figure out how to welcome people into this place and not be exclusionary, because that is the current way, right? National borders are drawn such to keep people out, to keep labor out, to keep all those things out. Well, we're going to have to get to more of an internationalist mindset. And there's a lot of social, cultural work that must be done in places where I am, like that, to get beyond that crisis.
Yes, indeed.
I can speak a little bit. I think a barrier that I notice is a lot of the books on the climate crisis or climate justice typically is coming from a white narrative, and also that accessibility within the cost of books, like the cost of buying a book online and so many other things, but also for me, the recognizing that the climate crisis feels very, feels like it comes from colonialism, a lot of it, just because of the society we live in and what that means.
Just to underscore, not feels like, it does
Oh,
come from
yes.
colonization.
Agreed.
Couldn't hear what I said?
Yeah, what you do?
Oh, I said just to underscore, it's not that it feels like it comes from colonization, but it does come from colonization.
I feel like there, for me, I often feel like a feeling of hopelessness around these issues, and that even when, like I sit on a board for designers. I sit on the 829 board, and even when you have folks who are like motivated to make change, it's so freaking complicated to do it. So like we have a number of people who are like activists in this arena, and they want to make change. They're like, we should like reinvest our pension funds in green initiatives, right? And he's like, and so this great guy. He's like, we should do this. And the financial guy is like, yeah, I'll send an email about that. And then we get the email back, and it's like, it's going to be really complicated to do that. Who's going to do that work? And so I think it's about how do we first gain the knowledge of like what we need to do this work, and then who actually does that work, and how do we make time and prioritize this work when like the help is
That brings up a really good point as well, that the processes, I think, for identifying what your activism should look like, that process, it very much mirrors developing an anti-racist practice, or what's necessary to start to dismantle white body supremacy, right? Which is people have to do the work of identifying where their power and privilege is, and then craft practices that leverage that specific power and privilege. We can't just throw everything at the wall, right? And I think a lot of times, because there's so much to unpack, we're throwing everything at the wall. What are we doing this week? Well, we're using all glass bottles, or everybody's buying an electric car, or when that is not necessarily where each person's power and privilege is. And that's what we have to identify, and then leverage that towards climate just work. The other thing is, one of the barriers that I'm finding in New Orleans, a place that's predominantly Black, that is, all of Louisiana is dealing with, I just want to be clear, the impacts of climate change, right? Not just New Orleans. But one of the barriers is the onslaught of white body supremacy. It's so overwhelming. And so when you're talking specifically when I'm talking to other Black people in the city, it's hard to figure out what to prioritize. Do we prioritize,
What's that Toni Morrison quote?
Yeah, we have it. Yeah.
The very serious function of
distraction.
racism is distraction.
Right. And so getting, to the place where we're able to connect it all, right? And to realize that at the core of it, it's still the same, oppositional force that we're fighting, which is white body supremacy culture. It's still front and center. It's just, I call it the mother. I call white body supremacy the mother. And all of the other isms, right, are as little babies. And climate injustices and environmental racism are like the grandbabies, right? And so it's the same root cause, right? And so we have to include it in the conversations. But just connecting it and getting close to prioritize, and also because it's so, climate justice work has become highly identified with whiteness, right? Almost mentioning it in conversations seems to be, it has a negative connotation. if people think that you are trying to defer or detract from a conversation around racism and white supremacy, right? When you say, let's also talk about climate change, and it's almost like it's associated with whiteness or a detraction. So that's a huge barrier that we're facing. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Do we have a consent for photograph the photographer to take a photo?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, okay. That's me.
Is everybody good? Consent been weird with that photography stuff at the conference. I just want to say, y'all know that's not how y'all do. We gotta ask for consent, though. Y'all know that. TCG knows that, right? Okay. Or just like not asking in a group, because if there's someone who doesn't give consent, there's a lot of pressure to just say yes or not. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just want to make sure you know that I'm all about consent culture.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Oh yeah. Anybody from the
Tara, were you gonna jump in?
Yeah, along those
Oh,
same veins too.
How do I hold on. How do I make them audible? Sorry, Tara. Jacob, we really needed your patience and attention. Thank you.
But by naming it, did you bring in
Yes. I'm just here for big fossil fuels.
I think
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're good.
Cool beans. Yeah, so along those same veins too that Lauren just brought up, with all of these, again, these like the barrier being like all these siloed conversations, is also decolonization being left out of that. Because also decolonization is not the same as anti-racism work, it's very different. And then also with the intersection of climate justice is that 80% of the world's biodiversity is cared for and stewarded by indigenous peoples who only have access to 20% of their lands. So whenever we talk about like how are we going to combat the climate crisis and ensure that we have plants and food and water and such, indigenous peoples globally have to be involved in that conversation, which means that decolonization has to also be centered in that work, which again is something that's missing from, what is it? The white climate saviors? That's what it say. Anyway, which is important. Anyway, so while people can hear us, our friends on Zoom, does anyone else want to share? You need to put in the chat, I can voice it for you, or you can unmute, or come on camera, or a combination. Any other barriers that you've experienced or have noticed, or any other offerings? Give folks just a second.
Tara and I both do this thing when we're waiting. We're just like.
Well, usually I do the Jeopardy music, and they can't get me on copyright today.
No, they can't because we're streaming on HowlRound.
Oh shit.
No, it's good. It's good. I was gonna. This is like a rough little. It occurred to me that if anybody is like newish to this work around environmental justice, it might be worth just saying like, what the hell even is environmental justice? Like, what is? So practically speaking, I'm just gonna name a couple of resources, and then we'll give our own definitions in here too. But the EPA actually has an environmental justice like whole web page where they go through several definitions, and we'll have like lots of statistics across the country around like what does environmental injustice and environmental racism look like across the country. So I recommend like.
I can't hear you, Annalisa.
Oh,
working it out. There we go.
Damn. Can you hear me now?
Yes, also for access reasons, whenever the mics are changing, can we pause conversation so that
Thank you.
we're streaming it at the same
Thank you.
experience?
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I thought they could hear me on this thing.
No,
That's my bad. That's my bad. No, it's okay. Shall I name those resources one more time?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I was saying, for folks that might be newish to this conversation, just want to take a moment to like give some definitions around what even the hell is environmental justice. And I was offering that the EPA has a whole page that is dedicated to environmental justice and like naming what is environmental racism. And there's a lot of statistics around what it looks like in different communities across the country. So that's one place to go look. I would also name the Climate Justice Alliance. They have been doing movement organizing. I see some heads nodding, that's great. They've been doing movement organizing for like decades, and I know at Groundwater, and I don't know, I'm sure y'all look to them too, as just like a real leader, and they're coalition builders in the field as well. And they have a lot of great resources and definitions and like organizing materials that if you want to implement some of this stuff in your institutions, they have a lot of free stuff on their website. But for our purposes, let's just say like, so environmental racism is, it's that when there are things like pollution and flooding, right? Like it's almost always disproportionately affecting Black, Brown, Indigenous communities. Like,
so an example of, an example of environmental racism, specifically to use Louisiana as an example, is Cancer Alley. Have you all heard of Cancer Alley? So there's a lot of like oil
refineries.
Right, oil refineries and toxic landfills that were created along this very old road called River Road. Another interesting history about this space is it's also the road in which most plantations were lined up against and still exists. The plantation still exists there now, which I find interesting and a very good example of how environmental racism is connected to racism.
Yeah.
Justices are connected to racism.
Totally. And I can name an example here in Pittsburgh, which is that the Clairton Coke Works plant, which is down the Monongahela River, it's the biggest coke plant in the country, and it is upstream of Black neighborhoods. So all of the waste that goes into the Mon just flows right through Black neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods have a higher proportion of cancer, have a higher proportion of asthma, have a higher proportion of lead being in the water. And it's like those real effects are what we're talking about when we're talking about environmental racism. And when I mentioned the EPA, they have the studies that it's like, these are facts, right? That it does actually, oh, Tara, go. Wait, we have to switch the sound so we can hear you.
Wait, you on it?
No problem. Put it in the cup. Okay, okay. I'm putting it in. Oh, that is better, yeah. That's good.
Yes.
Perfect.
Do I need to bring this around?
Speaking of the EPA, like let's not all be too excited about it, because again, a lot of this, like racially motivated, like climate crises happen from the government. And so, as an example, after the Supreme Court case, the McGirt Supreme Court case of 2020 in July of 2020, which reestablished the reservations in Oklahoma. As part of retaliation, the EPA allowed the dumping of toxic waste materials onto these new reservation lands, thereby contaminating the land and the water of Native people in Oklahoma, and it's been a huge issue. So again, we see in the governmental level as well. So even though the EPA has all of these resources, knowing it's still a white colonial institution that's still upholding the, perpetuating the climate crisis through specific racial targeted attacks.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, we learned yesterday too from Miguel about the corn planter grant reservation that's up, it's a Seneca reservation that's up the Allegheny River. And he told a story yesterday about how, I can't remember which governmental, but it was definitely a federal government decision to like create the Kinsua Dam that flooded out the reservation. And so the Seneca people, but this is recently, this is like the 60s. They were forcibly moved up into New York State. So thank you, Tara, for naming that piece of it too.
And I think it is compounded, like I was saying earlier, by other than injustices that stem from racism. So for example, for Cancer Alley, that area is 60% Black, right? So first you're having this enormous amount of residents who are seeking out care, right? Who have cancer, who have other health ailments, and then they lack access to care, right? Or they lack they lack the money to receive proper care. So then you have a lot of folks who are dying. So that impacts, who's living in this area. That impacts the taxes in the school system. And it starts to compound upon itself, and then people are left confused as to what aspect of this system they need to prioritize or focus on. Where do we start from? And then, but it all comes back to why is the area that I live in, right, prime real estate for toxic waste oil refineries? And then why does no one seem to care, right?
I will add one more thing on sort of like a solution hopeful note. That is, so I said that earlier that I live and work in Baltimore. My day job is that I work at Baltimore Center Stage. And we're having these conversations about like, how do we prioritize climate crisis inside of all the other crises that we're like trying to respond to. And one thing that I've been interested in, Sabine can attest, Sabine works with me at BCS. But one thing that I've been interested in is like, okay, we're talking about maybe solar panels, maybe like the lights, and how do we pick what we're gonna do first, right? Like how do we prioritize something? And I'm sort of like, one of the biggest problems in Baltimore for the Black residents of our city is that we have this fucking trash incinerator that is called a renewable energy source. So they literally burn trash to make energy for the city. And this incinerator gets federal and state funding as a renewable energy source. It's crazy. And of course, that it spews toxins into the air in historically and currently Black neighborhoods. So similar cancer rates and similar asthma, it's like horrible. So I'm like, why are we not at BCS prioritizing reducing our waste? Like I'm like, this is the impact in our city where like, why don't we start there? And like the rest of the stuff can come, of course. But like if we're talking about having to make decisions about what do we do right now, start with the thing that's having an impact in your community.
Yeah.
I think we're about to say goodbye to our friends on live stream.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Big was saying, we're about to say goodbye to our friends on the live stream. People on the Zoom, you're welcome to stay, please stay. But the HowlRound friends who are just watching the stream are about to peace out because we're about to do some featuring. After our break, thank you, after our break. But thank you to everybody who's watching on HowlRound. Thank you to Jay. Thank you to everybody at HowlRound who made this type of access possible. Yes, there's claps, there's snaps. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wonderful. Does anything else? Anything else? Devin, thank you for all you did. I just saw you there.
Let me know if you want me to help fix the audio on the break.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's great.